Hello guys, welcome back and welcome to DevOps training. And earlier tutorials we have seen some unique operations and some command of the Gits. Now it's the time to know about the GitHub. So guys, in this particular session we are going to discuss about the Git and GitHub. So let's move to this particular slide, and we have already seen this particular picture earlier. Okay, when we was learning about the Git, what is Git? This is the first tutorial of the Git, so we have already seen this particular picture. Now this is something new what we are getting over here. So first we will discuss it again, then we will come to here. Okay, so let's see guys. Basically I'm explaining about the Git and GitHub because most of the people seems or most of the people understand these things like they are similar or they are single things. But actually Git is a separate process and GitHub is a separate entity. Okay, Git is a version control management tool, but GitHub is a centralized repository. Okay, we'll discuss it in later tutorials. Let's discuss this particular diagram first. What we have learned in about the distributed version control system. So we have working on same theory. Like this is my working copy. We have already learned about the working area and the working copy on which we was working on the Peter. That was the project, the Git project on which we was working. Okay, and we are significantly performing the operation like git add, git check status, git commit. So what we was doing using my working copy, I was significantly performing the operation and committing the change on my local repository over here. Okay, over here I was over here in this particular repository I was committing my changes. Okay, so this was my working copy. Here between some kind of staging area, then this is my local repository. I was doing the same thing. Now in my team, if we have the 15 member of team, then definitely all of them was doing the same thing. Okay, they was doing their changes, they were code their logics, the business logics in their working area or in their working copy, then they committing their changes inside to the local git repository. Okay guys, now in this particular system we didn't see these commands pull and push because we was not using any centralized repository till now. We was doing, we was using Git and we was committing the changes. We was committing the changes. So where we was committing the changes? We was committing our changes using in our local Git repository. Okay. In the distributed version control system, total definition, we have already learned about the centralized repository, the local repository, and the working area. That was the concept of the distributed version control system. So now here when the terms come around the central repository or centralized repository, or we can say the server, then the GitHub comes into the picture. Okay, so this is me, this is my local repository, and this is my centralized server. So GitHub is something which will provide you the centralized server to the companies or to individual peoples. Okay, so that the guys can put their code on their cloud host systems or on their systems. So Git is something like a cloud where I will push or pull my code. Okay, using the push my code, I can push my Git repository onto the centralized server or on GitHub. Using the pull command, I can fetch all the updated command or sorry all the updated codes from the GitHub to my centralized repository. Now let's understand it with the case study. So I'm working in some company, and in my company we are 15 people who are working on a same project. Okay, so as a role I'm working as a software engineer, and my role is to about the designing. Okay, design the base classes, design the basic structure of the program, and beside me I have three guys to help me, and we are working as a team, and we are designing the product from the scratch. And apart from our three of us, there are some people more who some of them are working on the, you can say, on the back end. Some of them are working on the network layer, and some of them are working on the UI layer. Some of them are working on Ajax or JavaScript layer, and there are different segments on that particular project. Now what they want, basically the project is a single project. Okay, but we have a different short teams in a single umbrella. So we need a centralized repository where all of us can basically put our code so that our code can integrate with each of the so that our code can integrate and it communicate with the different modules. Okay, so for that, to resolve that issue, we will look into a centralized repository. So this is my team, this is their local repository. They will push their code changes over the centralized repository. This is the another team, this is their another repository. They will push their changes to the centralized repository, and same case here. So at the runtime, all of the teams or all of the members which are working on that particular product, which are working on that particular project, they can fetch the all codes from the centralized repository. In their local, they have the complete copy of their source code of their project. Okay, so this GitHub is a basically a centralized repository for us. Git is just a version control management system or version control management tool which will work in my local. Okay, but on the GitHub will work as a centralized repository for me, where I will put my code changes or where I will put my code of my complete project, right? So till now, let's see the workflow. We have already seen this, the working directory or the working area, then the staging area and the local repository. We have already seen these three in the Git workflow tutorial. So we was adding and committing the changes. Okay, these four commands: git push, git pull, git checkout, and git merge is still we are going to study. The remote or the remote repository. This is GitHub. Okay, guys. Till this particular three phases, my local system is working. Okay, I'm writing the code in my local, staging the code in my local, and committing the code in my local repository. But when I want to commit or when I want to push my local repository to the remote repository, I need to use the command git push. Okay, and if I want to fetch the complete code of my project from the centralized repository, then I need to use the command git pull. Okay, we will talk about the git checkout and git merge in later tutorials, but this is the picture. This is my local where the git is working, and this is the GitHub, the remote repository. Now guys, GitHub is a repository hosting service. Basically, repository hosting service means GitHub is something where we will put our code. Okay, and think is it's a cloud of the code. Obviously we can think it's as a cloud of the code, and GitHub is a centralized repository, and GitHub is a code hosting platform. So the all things or the all of the statements are justifying what is Git. And in the simple terms, I can say GitHub is just like a social media for the developers, where on the social media we are putting our profiles, on the GitHub we are putting our source code. That's it. So guys, that's all for the Git and GitHub. Okay, in coming tutorials, we will see how we can create the centralized repository and push our code over there. So thank you guys. Thanks for your time.